From the high plains of the Midwest, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever your time zone might be. My nod to the late and great Art Bell. I'm Keith Sharp.
And I'm G. Dressel.
And we welcome you to Life After Life, a paranormal webcast where we talk about the paranormal, UFOs, or the unexplained. And the biggest question of them all, what happens when we die? Stay tuned. Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good
morning. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
That's just, it's just what you usually say. So, Garrett, how was your week, my man?
It's hot, dude.
Yeah, it's hot in here, too.
It's really hot outside.
Yeah, and we got this windows facing, I think, the west.
It is.
And the sun is coming through that big window at the top there. So it's like, I got the air conditioner's on 66.
Is it?
Yeah. Feels like it's 150 in here.
Yeah.
So, Pam, how was your week?
Busy.
Busy?
Busy.
Busy.
Hey, are we going to go and investigate the location at some point?
Yeah, we are going to do a ghost hunt at the nursing center. Oh, no, it's not called the nursing center. Every time I say the nursing center, I get in trouble. It's assisted living center.
Residential care facility.
Here, put your mouth to the mic, babe.
It's a residential care facility.
Okay. Okay, so whatever Pam just said, we're going to do some investigations. They got some really good videos of things flying off the shelves.
Or the microwave that's spinning on its own.
The microwave that spins on its own, yet it's not plugged in.
With the door open. And when you close the door, it stops. Super weird.
That was crazy. And what was it, a sugar packet or something?
Sugar bowl.
Yeah,
Yep,
sugar bowl just flew off.
Cell phone.
Cell phone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to get that set up. And next week.
I'm out of town.
Yeah, next week there won't be a show because Garrett's going to Florida. Lucky dog.
Might do a couple of lives or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah.
Do it from the beach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Won't be as interesting since I'm not there, but
of course
well.
not.
No. So, all right. So, guys, we have a real live witch on here tonight, right?
An awesome one.
Yeah, and we want to thank her very much. Garrett, too, you got right on it, buddy.
Yeah, well, I
We couldn't find a time traveler. There was no time travelers.
Well, they are, but they're not coming forward.
They're not coming
because they're on
forward.
a mission, right?
Right.
It's great because I've known Erin essentially my whole life, and she can go in and kind of tell us, obviously what she did as a job and everything. But I had contacted her kind of when we started the show, and kind of was like putting her on notice, like, hey, we might need you at some point. And I think it was after the military medium episode.
Oh yeah.
And so I was kind of like following her and seeing what she was doing, and she obviously got back and was like, this sounds really interesting. And so I knew, like, whenever we were kind of having time travel, I was like, hey, you know what, this is going to be a great interview. Erin's super interesting.
These are my favorite to do. I love the interviews because then we got the interaction with a separate party.
Absolutely.
Instead of just you and me yakking back and forth, which is probably boring for everybody.
Yeah, probably.
But all right, so we're going to bring on Erin Patton.
Yes, like General Patton.
Like General Patton. Erin, how are you today? You're on the air.
Hi. I'm doing well. How are you?
We are wonderful. And thank you so much. Like at the last minute, what a trooper she is.
From Rhode Island.
From Rhode Island. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I'm from Oklahoma. I just moved here. Like, I think I've maybe been here a week now, a week and a couple of days. So,
do you like it?
Fresh Rhode Island. I love it so much. Yes.
Awesome.
It's like everybody that leaves Oklahoma, that's the first thing out of their mouth. Oh, this is so much better than Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I got a friend that lives in Venice, Florida, and he loves it. Absolutely loves it. Says he'll never.
It's been cool, but ultimately people are people, and if you have good vibes, you have good vibes. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, Erin, you are a real witch. Now, explain to my audience, what is a real witch? I always thought it meant you practice Wiccan, but is that not correct?
I think that the term, a lot like some of our terms, just our terms we've had around for a long time, they ebb and flow, they change. And so I kind of adopted this whole idea of, to me, a witch is somebody who chooses to go their own way.
Okay.
And it's more kind of from just an innate intuition, what maybe you were taught within your own family, because I think families pass down kind of like their own brand of magic, so to speak, with just, I'll just tell you, for instance, my family, generations back, just grew up super poor, Dust Bowl. We're washing the tin foil. We're doing all that stuff because of what we've been through. But we're also really kind of people who don't trust big business and don't trust doctors so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I come from a long line of women who would use, tinctures they had made from natural herbs because they had this book that had been passed down in their family of all of these natural cures for things. So really, like, kind of my interest in that was, we were using essential oils and things like that whenever I was a kid, before it was a trendy, thing for moms to sell.
Right, for sure.
We were using that sort of stuff, and so I think that every family kind of brings their own brand of that, depending on where they've come from.
Right.
But for me, it's really just being in tune, not only with my own body, like my own intuition and developing that and trusting that, but also the elements. I think, air, water, fire, earth, spirit,
right.
being in alignment as much as you can with those kind of elements. And, again, ebbing and flowing and kind of just going with, nurturing when you need something. Like, I really felt a pull to the water, and so I'm very happy to be in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
After living in a landlocked state for 38 years of my life, there are a lot of things about Oklahoma that just kind of made me feel antsy after so many years, and I just needed to be somewhere else. But water was really one of the things that I was just literally being drawn towards. So I think any practice like that, and involving the elements, so to speak, but just natural, really relying on wisdom that's passed down and the earth.
Right. So is that kind of like is it New Age kind of the same belief then?
I thought probably so. I would really kind of categorize myself as an eclectic witch, because you do have your Wiccans, that's very,
right.
that's, it's very much still in practice by people. And, like I say, I don't really do that, but as far as like pagan holidays, I do kind of pay attention to those and know when those kind of are, because it's all about the changing of the season.
Right.
And ushering in just kind of new energy. And so it's like cleaning your space and donating items and that sort of thing are these, I think, holidays that a lot of Bible Belt Christians get it in their minds that these are weird satanic rituals and practices, when if you actually saw what we do, like it's so like just cleansing and really trying to release a lot of emotional baggage or anything you have.
Right.
We might use some, like, burn some sage and do things like that, because these are ancient practices that have been used for that very purpose, clearing energy.
Yeah, everybody seems to associate, Satanism, witchcraft as, you're flying on a broom, you're out at midnight at the full moon, bearing a chicken foot, facing west.
Right, for sure. Well, I know that in talking to some of the people like that I work with that love the show, they're all very excited about this interview, because they don't know, what I mean?
And I think it's important that we, put that myth to bed about, a lot of Christians do. Anything that's just not Christian is from the devil, according to them, And I was brought up Baptist, and very strict Baptist. And then it's kind of like that old saying George Carlin had, I used to be religious until I learned to think for myself. And so I just, took common sense. I do the same thing. Like we use sage. We had a haunting at my house for years, and we burned it with sage. We had a lot. That's a whole nother story. We'll have you back on, talk about that.
Love it,
But yeah.
Speaking of ghost stuff, that is for sure one of the things that has always like piqued my interest. When I was a kid, I saw things I couldn't explain, and kind of just over the years, was convinced by other people and convinced myself, that I had been, that I'd seen things, or kind of like I had a very active imagination. I very easily could have just, put the pieces together and imagine these things. But it has been interesting how ghost interactions have come back into my life as an adult. So yeah, let's have another.
Man, that's interesting.
Yeah, we'll have you back on.
Well, that's one of the questions I had for you, Aaron, because we all grew up in Mustang. We're very, you know what I'm saying. Obviously, the community's evolved over the last 30 years, to an extent. But when did you start realizing that you were going down this path?
Good question.
When did it click for you?
Yeah, that is a great question. Probably around 2016, 2017. And a lot of it had to do with Trump, honestly, in a weird way. I really just stopped watching television, and I'd been sick. I'd had like autoimmune stuff, and I just didn't trust, just these things that I was putting in my body anymore. And I just didn't trust what was on my TV anymore. And I really was just like, you know what? I'm not relying on anything external for a while. I'm going to really kind of dive into myself and do some self-searching. And a lot of it was, that whole, they call it like the dark night of the soul. And I think it's just being really, really not happy with yourself and knowing that there's more to your own life. You want to do more with it. Sort of thing. But honestly, that was kind of when I really got serious about it. And I read a book called Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, in which there's a tarot reader. There's a whole theme, with tarot. And I had always been interested in these divination tools. My parents very strongly warned me against ever interacting with an Ouija board, and I never have, and I really don't want to. But as far as asking questions and I don't really, I direct them to kind of the universe in general. I'm just like, hey, if there's some type of message, let me know. But that's kind of how I do my tarot readings too. I just kind of connect with a person's energy and say, show me, what they need to know. And then I hand shuffle and trust whatever comes out is the message that they need. So all of that really kind of came about, and I was kind of in practice by 2018.
So you were kind of, excuse me, man. So what is going on with me tonight?
I don't know.
Do I need to hydrate? Am I dehydrated? Did she put a spell on me? Aaron.
It's really hot there.
It is. Hey, so I was just going to ask, so essentially what you're saying is you had to really search inside yourself and figure out what it is for yourself. And then, be vulnerable to yourself, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's not pretty. I have some journals and some tarot readings I did for myself early on that were really almost like a wake up call, where all of these cards were reversed, which they can come out straight up or they can come out flipped upside down. And generally, when they're reversed, they're kind of like a more negative connotation to the reading. And so I had all of these reversed cards, but it really kind of showed me the areas in which I needed to grow up a whole lot, so it was good. And then once I kind of went on that journey and did that for myself, I had friends who were like, okay, hey, I do want you to read my card.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
And then I would, and they would say, I have no idea how you knew all of that. And I'm like, I'm just telling you, I kind of am piecing together what I do know about your life, of course, because you're my friend. Right. But also, here are these cards that came out, and because they're in this certain order, and there are all kinds of different spreads to use, and everybody is super individual about what they're into. I like to do I'm part Irish, and I feel a real draw to the Celtic cross spread, and it's 10 cards, and it's just the position of the cards never change. It's just what pulls out each time. So it's been really, really helpful for me, but it's been really awesome to help other people and for them just to be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. That makes perfect sense. I know exactly what that message is. Thank you. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a tarot reading before, and it's weird how close it is.
I've never had one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Well, I'll have to Garrett, I'll do one. I'll send you one after we're done here.
Please do. I'd be interested.
Yeah.
What was yours like, Keith?
I was nervous as hell because, you know, I like I said, I was brought up like in Baptist religion. And so to me, I was always told my whole life, tarot cards, all this stuff was of the devil. But like as I got a little bit older, I started thinking for myself and started thinking how much contradictory stuff was in the Bible that just didn't make sense to me. You know, like you're talking about, and I'm probably going to piss off a lot of people, but it's like, you know, I don't believe we had a God that flooded the earth and killed every single person because he was upset. Wanted to start all over again. I mean, if I can't watch anybody drowned and I'm not as good as God, how could God watch babies, kids, everything be drowned?
So you had these questions.
So it became. I mean, it's a good book. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying there was a Jesus or wasn't Jesus. I'm not saying that at all.
Talk about your beliefs as much as you want, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, and I've talked about my beliefs.
We've talked about it a lot.
Yeah, I just but I just want to think for myself and. You know, when I do that, I have friends go, "Oh, we'll pray for you."
Yeah. And so where was this tarot reading at? Like, where did you go?
It was actually this woman that does it here in town. I think she still does it. She has a little shop, and I went and saw her a couple times. It was kind of weird because my dad died in October of last year.
Right.
And God, this must have been 10, 11, maybe even longer than that, 12 years ago.
Right.
And because my dad was in bad health, and I kind of talked to her about it. I said, I go, is he going to go fast? That's what I asked her.
Right, yeah.
And she said, yeah, it'll be like lights out. And she goes, it's probably going to happen in October. Well, when she said that, I thought,
like next
October.
Yeah. And then 10 Octobers later.
So then when October came, there was a part of me thought, okay, well, she wasn't very accurate on some things. And some things are not completely accurate.
Well,
it's kind of hit and miss on some stuff. But sure enough, he died last year in October, and he died very peacefully, it was fast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know what's wild, really quick, and then we'll get back to the interview, is
Sure.
you took Cass to this lady, I think Pamela was with her. You guys took Cass, and the lady had told her that she was going to graduate from OU.
Mm-hmm.
And then she made some other statements that were just like kind of bizarre for Cass at the time.
Yeah.
And then Cass and I were together for 7 years before we got married.
Right.
It wasn't until after we got married that it hit her that some of the things that the lady was saying back when you guys went was about us together and our family. Talking about having daughters and weird stuff like that. So. Yeah,
it is weird. So it's like, they may tell you something. It doesn't mean it's going to happen right away. It could be 7, 10, 15 years.
Right.
And probably there's a part of that, the other side that like, hey, let's not tell him the date of his father's death.
Yeah.
So we'll let him know he's going to die peacefully. And okay, so it's going to be in October,
So wait, Aaron, do you just throw these cards out and then you're interpreting them to the client?
Yeah.
Or okay.
How much of it, Aaron, do you think there's any part of it, though, that, and I'm just playing a devil's advocate, that when you lay the cards down and you tell these people that it becomes a self-prophecy thing for them, because of what you said, they kind of strive to go down that path rather than that path naturally happening to them?
Well, with what I do, I never do any type of like predictive reading. So with that Celtic cross spread, it's really a general snapshot of your life. I can tweak it to make it a love reading specifically or a career reading specifically. But most of all, it's just kind of a snapshot of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it will lead somebody to ask me questions. So for instance, the first card in the spread is just kind of the starting place for the reading. What's the overall energy for the reading? The second card is always the problem, issue, or situation. So if there is kind of something wrong, it'll come up in that second card. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything negative, right? It could be like you're feeling all this stress because you have a big move coming up. So it's like the moving away. It's not necessarily moving away is bad. It's not a problem.
Right.
It's the issue at hand, which is causing, which is what this, whatever I'm about to tell, whatever else is going to come is
right.
kind of.
So why am I having these headaches? What's going on?
Right.
No, it's funny you say that because I just had a huge move about 2 months ago.
Massive.
Really?
Yeah, and it's still bothering me. But,
Is it?
yeah, well, it's stressful. It's just, we got the house empty finally, and then it's like, each week the lawn needs to get
Something
mowed. I got to
else.
go back and remop. I got to go back and do this. Trying to, just trying to get it ready to sell. It's just a lot of
they
pressure.
moved into like a mafioso mansion. To be fair, it's like James Gandolfini living in here or something.
No.
Hey, so like whenever you do these readings, do I need to physically be sitting across the table from you?
That's what's interesting. I really wasn't doing them for other people in person ever. It was for friends, and I said, hey, like I'm just gonna pull cards for you. Like, I love
Cool.
you. You're
Yeah.
connected to me as a person. Let me just pull them. And then when the pandemic hit and I couldn't be face to face with anybody anyway, I found that taking pictures of their cards and sending that to them, then they have a record of them. And then 2, I just send voice memos with each one, so then they have that record. A lot of people have these done in person, and they don't really get anything to take with them to remember.
Oh, I love that.
They may be able to, nowadays they may be able to sit there and record the whole thing on voice memo, but maybe not, because that's someone else's intellectual property, and the reader might not want them to record them.
For
so
sure.
I really wanted, I want you to have the information to be able to look back and re-listen and again see if it was truly, kind of what was going on. You asked about self-fulfilling prophecies. I think for the most part, when people ask me for a tarot reading, all they're looking for is confirmation.
Yeah.
So I'm giving them confirmation on something. I've definitely gotten the confirmation of, yes, you should leave this relationship. Or yes, you should switch this job. Your job is soul sucking, and the cards are telling you that
Right.
you need a decision. But ultimately, it's always free will.
Absolutely.
You got to make that move for yourself. So
you become somewhat of a psychiatrist to people, or psychologist, because basically they're asking you, hey, Aaron, should I take this job? Hey, Aaron, should I see this person?
Well, I think it's interesting that you use the word confirmation, because it sounds like whenever you found that this was the path you were going to go down, is that you were in this place where you couldn't confirm anything. Like, you couldn't confirm what was on the TV. You couldn't confirm what was going on with your body and what you were putting in your body, what the doctors were telling you. And so you went down this path, and now you have the ability to give confirmation to other people. And that's super powerful. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate that view of it. Yeah. Thanks.
Very well rounded.
I feel. I had a heart attack last August.
God, that was terrible.
Yeah, and so they put me on all this medication, which I'm still taking, but it makes me feel worse than I did before my heart attack.
Uh-huh.
Like I have no energy. I have no motivation. It's been tough, so it's like, I know I need it, and I'm pretty sure it's partly blood pressure medicine.
Hey,
and
can you keep taking that, please?
I'm going to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because there's some things you just got to buck up, I guess.
I'm not doing this show on my own.
Yeah.
Me and Pamela are not going to do this.
Yeah, well, I'll come as a spirit and do it for you.
Through the spirit box.
Yeah, okay. No, but I get what you're saying. But when it's your heart, to switch to something like herbs or something is a little scary because of it's a very dangerous situation for me if I don't take my medication. But
absolutely, yeah. And I think that if you're going to a tarot reader or anyone who is giving you medical advice via divination, you need to go the other way.
Yeah,
right.
Consult your physician first.
Hey, did you see it's also interesting you brought up the pandemic and kind of how that changed things for you. Did you see an increase in or did you feel an increase in the need to give readings and to kind of put yourself out there? Because it seems like that would be a moment where people are struggling. So that would be the vibe that's going out.
Yeah, well, I got divorced at the very beginning of the pandemic of last year. We kind of went into quarantine, and we were quarantined for about a month together before we were like, yeah, this wasn't working before, and it's definitely not working now.
Spending too much time.
We're going to go ahead and end this. So I was very much at a place where I was kind of at one of my rock bottoms too. So sometimes, like, I don't have my life together, but I can do a tarot reading for someone else and help them make it feel like for a second, hey, I can still do things.
Right, for sure.
So I did do some of that. But mainly what I found is, a lot of people were just, it was just, it's these cycles, and to me, like, tarot is these archetypal stories, and all of these are cycles repeating. So we're all, on just this, different cycle, kind of same story, different verse.
Right, for sure.
Cycling through. So now I don't remember your original question.
No, I was just wondering if, like, during the pandemic, because you feel vibes, right? You mentioned that earlier. And so I just didn't know if, like, during the pandemic, like, what that felt like for somebody that's really open to accepting, because we've had mediums on before. I had my first medium reading live on the air.
Yeah.
And
that kind of showed you right there you didn't have to be in person. Plus,
freaking terrified, dude.
Yeah. And
Aaron, I was so nervous. And I don't hardly get nervous about anything.
He nailed yours.
Yeah.
And he nailed it. And he was in Michigan, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Michigan, and we were in Oklahoma City. Yeah, and he nailed it. And so, but even with him, like, he could feel those vibes and stuff. So I didn't know if for somebody like you that's open and, receptive to other people's feelings, if during a time like the pandemic or, a global catastrophe or something, if that's affecting you on a different level.
Well, and I think, most, mediums or readers or whatever, people who really, we get these signs, we just get images put into our heads that come from nowhere. We can't, we have no explanation for other than this is a message for you. This must be, because I've never seen this thing in my life and it just popped into my head.
Right.
Sort of thing. I think most of us are empaths. So we are highly sensitive. We are empathic. We can take on, we can just, like, feel your emotions. So absolutely. I almost, was kind of referring to it as the great sadness that we were just kind of all having, because whether we were liking, our lives or not, they all got halted.
Right, for sure. It was different.
In a way, and just things had to change. And there was just so much fear mongering going on at the time, at the beginning and the time of the two that, just totally added to it. But I was feeling it, and I didn't know it was going to be Rhode Island, but I knew by about November, 2020 that I was after I finished that school year was going to be moving out of the state in June.
Oh wow!
I thought it was going to be Austin, but it ended up being Rhode Island, and I couldn't be happy.
Aaron, that's like completely different direction from Austin.
I know.
Yeah. When I initially, Keith told me Long Island, I was like, oh, okay. And then you said Rhode Island. I was like, well,
I
now I know which in Rhode Island. That's awesome. Okay, so hey, here's the question that I've asked previous guests like Dr. Corelli and the military medium and these guys and girls. Is, do you feel like that this is something that can be learned by just the average person? Like me, like somebody that has like 3 young kids, like life is crazy, work's insane, wife complaining. But like, does it just take practice and settling down? Can this be learned?
I think absolutely. A lot of it is you've got to kind of shed your own emotional baggage and kind of have your soul searching type of time. And a lot of us need major things to happen in our lives before we can take the time to be still enough to get to a meditative state.
For sure.
So many of us just don't ever do that. And so if you already have, just for like anger management, or like, I know just my motor, like once I get going, I'm hyper for hours.
Right.
Like being an athlete too, and just like you get a lot of energy from the sport, but also from, you get jazzed, like teaching kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Already have sort of like, a meditative practice or something in which you kind of, I call it from that movie, Clear the Mechanism.
Right.
From For Love of the Game.
Yes. Great movie.
just clear the mechanism, because so many of it, we just don't even realize how much tension we're holding in our bodies. And a lot of the times we're holding emotions that aren't even ours. We've absorbed them from someone else and we're just holding on to them.
That seems like it's normally the case more often than not, honestly, especially in today's society with social media.
Yeah.
Right. And you can feel it driving, like when someone, people are cutting you off and it just feels like everyone on the road is angry.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
But I do. I do. And definitely, like, if you want to, you know what I mean? It's one of the things too. Like, if you're kind of a skeptic from the get-go and you're not going to open yourself up to it, like you already know that,
right?
Then no, I don't think that works.
Yeah,
I think
for sure. Well, I think desire is so important in anything, especially when you're learning, and and the reason I brought it up is because earlier you said that, like, as a child you were seeing things, and we've talked a lot about this on previous shows as well, is that, like, obviously, especially in our culture today, is that, like, if my kid sees something, I'm like, oh, well, I try to go back, maybe she saw it on SpongeBob or, something like that. Right. So you were having these experiences as a young child, and oftentimes, obviously, animals, pets, young children are susceptible. So I just find it interesting that it wasn't until many years later when, you reached this point that you almost had to go back to that clear meditative state that we see in kids, right? They're not worried about paying bills or changing diapers or, like, most kids aren't, right? And so I just wanted to ask if you felt like that was something that could be learned, or if it's something that's innate in all of us.
Oh, for sure. And, I think too, I know Jeremiah.
Yes.
Jeremiah Boogie.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a lot of stuff in his parents' house.
Okay, they lived there for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're still there. As far as I know, they're still there.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, they're alive.
Yep.
Yeah. You might want to reach out, because definitely, allegedly, like a young child had been killed, who had lived there. I don't know if he was killed on the property or whatever, but the energy that Jeremiah and I experienced, though it did scare us very much, was playful.
Interesting.
The worst of it that happened was that I was in his bedroom, he was in the dining room, and I hear this loud crash, and I come in to see the refrigerator door had been, like, thrown open, and everything on the top shelf of the refrigerator was now on the kitchen floor, and there was still like a mayonnaise jar, like, rolling towards Jeremiah, and he was looking at the fridge, but he was white as a ghost, and he had tears streaming down his face. And I was just like, what happened? And he was just like, I don't know. I heard a click. I looked over, and stuff's flying out of the fridge.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of energy.
We cleaned up real fast and got out of there.
Yeah.
We were the only ones.
I mean, that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So granted, that maybe wasn't as nice of one. His sister has seen lots of things as well. Some of her friends had seen some things, and they definitely were not friendly type things.
Right.
Others were, like, perfectly strumming a guitar when, like, we're looking at it and nothing's touching it, and it's just, and we're like, what?
Hey, that's happened to us.
Yes.
Me and my wife had the same thing with a guitar, started playing by itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Lights coming, had this DVD player that would just come on by itself, and then not only that, but of course the volume go up, like crazy stuff like that. The TV in his living room, in their living room in their house.
We must have had the same ghost.
Well, I don't think you guys live too far from each other, to be
well, the
honest.
house that I lived in that was haunted was in Moore, and the radio would come on, it'd get loud, and we actually it became a game where we'd say turn it down, it would turn it down. If we said turn it off, it would turn the radio off. So this is kind of very similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, I honestly think it's, this leftover residual energy from, when people were there before. And I do think sometimes that residual energy is there because of wrongdoing. they were murdered or, just something bad. And they kind of just need to be told, like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. You didn't deserve that. Just from someone who can communicate with them on this, because they're just in this other realm, just so confused as to what happened to them. And they really need answers or comfort or whatever,
Right.
I have all kinds of theories on that, but ultimately I don't know. I just think they're here and they want to communicate. And when people are open, that's when you can see it,
Okay. Everybody in the chat room, Aaron, is saying, do you practice witchcraft?
So that's a great question. So as far as what I do, I carry crystals on my person. I will ask a pendulum yes or no questions sometimes, and it will spin a certain way for yes and a certain way for no. I read tarot. But that's what's funny is I don't really consider what I do as a separate part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've always nature kid. I was a Girl Scout. I'm a tomboy. I played soccer. I was climbing trees. I was finding cool rocks and putting them in my pocket. So I've kind of been witchy in different ways my whole life. But as far as like I do zero spell work. I have a lot of friends who consider themselves witches who do spells. I don't do spells good ways or bad ways. I just don't dabble in that sort of thing. That's just not part of what I was ever drawn to or interested in. But I don't know. I think aspects of things that I do, like burning sage and, the divination, really, people would consider witchcraft, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's that whole,
Broom.
put everything into the basket, whether it goes against, traditional Christian values. It's witchcraft.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know that I would consider you a witch from what I'm hearing. I'll be honest.
Interesting. Well,
What would you consider?
I would
Not that it matters.
No. Yeah.
Dr. Sharp, please tell us what you consider. No, really though.
No, she's taken New Age and she's taken
Spiritualist.
Very much just different spiritual values that aren't necessarily.
I think it's fascinating.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, then I'm a witch because I burn sage. I do visualization.
Right.
I do a lot of the same things. I have crystals. I have a crystal necklace. My wife has a crystal necklace.
Yeah.
But I don't, people still have that idea of like you're stirring a pot, like a black
Right,
cauldron,
yes.
and you're putting evil spells on people, and you're flying around on a broom, which would be cheaper than gas right now,
Right, yeah,
if that's
absolutely.
possible. But yeah, so I mean that's cool though. But you do consider yourself a witch though?
I mean, for sure. Definitely. Just because I go my own way. But I'm going to consider you a witch now, too.
I am.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna say. See, I like that.
Well, then I'm definitely a witch too because I totally everything she believes in. I believe I believe that way.
Well, isn't it funny? Like, and I can't wait until we do the recap show when next October.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna get to talk about a lot of this stuff. But for me, I always love in retrospect, like looking back and looking at the what ties our shows together on the spiritual side.
Yeah.
And like even this conversation with Erin, like it just there's a lot of things that she's saying and like about spirituality and practice and individualism that I think just gets lost in the mix so much, man. Like, and it becomes this thing, right? Like people don't want to talk about what they believe in.
It does. And if you took Erin back to the 1600s and she talked about this,
what would happen to her, Keith?
she'd be called a witch and she'd be burned.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from. You're the way that you believe, the practices you have are not within what they call the normal set of religion. So,
but it is.
But it is.
Too. Yeah,
it is.
That's
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
funny about it,
Because who's to say
exactly
what the correct religion is?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well, there's prophets in the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Always my problem because I was in a southern. I wasn't raised in church, but started going, as Garrett knows. It was there was a real pull in Mustang to join.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that.
Yeah.
And so I was in a Southern Baptist one, but I didn't like being told that my boyfriend, who was a Mormon, was going to go to hell, and I didn't like
exactly
that my Catholic friend, my Evan,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
would be going to hell. Like
My
all
brother.
of that stuff. Like, full stop. I can't with this.
Yeah.
that was the whole problem with religion was the problem. Then when it started separating beliefs from this belief, because then you got churches going, well, the Methodists, they're going to hell because they don't believe the way we do.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
But I think that like any person that's willing to listen to this conversation that we're having with Aaron at every point would probably be able to say, like that makes sense. Like that, because like you said, like Catholic friends, like we talk a lot on the show how I'm Catholic, right? And I'm able to really tie in like some of the things you're saying to the messages I grew up learning, and so I think it's like just so interesting, and it's fascinating, honestly. And
Yeah.
I love the natural side of what you're talking about, though, Aaron. And honestly, I like the way that you even found it, because you said that it takes something. So we did a show on NDEs. And what about the like near-death experiences, man? Some of the effects that has on the human mind and spirit it's fascinating. You see people being able to do things they were never able to do before, or they're thinking a certain way, or they're finally talking about how they really feel, and that's super important. So,
Absolutely.
Right. That's what gets us all on the search, is what happens to us when we die.
That's what I was going to ask her.
Which we say, right, in the in the intro of our show, what happens to us when we die? That's the biggest question of all. We're all we're all looking for that, and I mean, and I'm a big believer of all paths will lead to God. So yeah, it's that's the biggest question of all. What happens to us when we die, Aaron?
That is. Cool. I think we are so. I think we take for granted. I think we have multiple lives.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I had a past life reading, and I was walked through 4 of my past lives.
Wow.
And it all just felt very like, yep, yes. And it was weird how little things from each of these past lives were in my current life in some way.
Wow.
And you carry some of those fears over, don't you, with past lives? And maybe that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, funnily enough, one of the ways he told me that I died once was that I was stabbed by a jealous lover in the neck. And whenever I was born, I had a really big, like the size of like a pencil eraser birthmark right behind my ear.
Yeah.
And once I learned that about that past life, I thought of that immediately. Yep, that was the mark too. That I came
right.
to.
We talked about that a lot in the reincarnation episode. I mean, there's certain parts of the world where, before you die, before the burial, they'll actually put markings on you so that in your next life you'll have a reminder.
Right.
So,
I find all that fascinating.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
I like the idea of getting to try it multiple times much better than one and done.
no, absolutely.
Yeah. Learn, and that's why I think we're here. Is just each life we're learning something. There's something we came back. There's a reason for it. There's something that we did in a past life. Maybe it's like, God, I could have did something like that better. So you're kind of put in a different timeline, but with the same situation. I think.
So it's a journey towards nirvana.
And it's like I always told Garrett, those times when you've been desperate and you've prayed to God, like, why are you letting this happen to me?
What's going on?
And I really think that's an agreement we made on the other side, going, God, I have to go through this, so you can't interfere with me during this lesson.
Oh, interesting.
So when I'm praying, my memory's wiped when I come down here. I'm going through this experience. I'm praying to God, and I'm like getting mad at God because He's not helping me with this. But I think it's something, an agreement we made on the other side when we wrote our story when we came down.
My initial response really quick would be like, okay, so what about atheists? But that would be a decision that is made. So if you made the agreement on the other side, then you could be an atheist, you could be a witch, you could be, right?
Yeah, because whatever happens to you when you die, it just happens. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So you die Satanist, atheist, Baptist, whatever. I think we go through life reviews, and I think we, you know, they say that people, the average, you know, and I don't know how people come up with this, but they say you take off about 100 years before you reincarnate down. Some people don't.
Right.
Take a 100-year break and then come back and try to do a little better.
Back on it.
But I always wondered, Aaron, it's a precursor to what? Well, I mean, how many lives do we have to live before it's like, okay, enough already? You know, I've learned enough. I don't want to come back. I mean, because I always joke with my friends and my wife about, I don't want to come back here. Hell no. No, once I die, it's like, please, God, don't make me reincarnate. I'm done.
Please.
Yeah. So it's like, I wonder what this is a precursor to. What's the big picture of this? You know?
Yeah. Too bad there's not a box we can check, like on our driver's license, if we want to be a donor. Like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I mean, God, I don't want to come back here again, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe subconsciously, maybe I do. I don't know.
Sure. And, you know, maybe souls do get retired. You know, maybe they have, you know, 50 lives and they're done.
Yeah, I want my hammock in my paradise and just leave me the hell alone. You know? You know, I don't want God going, well, you got about 4 more hours before I need you to go back. I'm like, no.
Hey,
you know,
okay. Go ahead, Aaron.
I'm a really curious person, and I don't know, I'm just real happy to be here kind of thing.
Yeah.
At this point in my life, and man, I haven't always been at you know, to be able to say that, like, I'm just along for the ride and enjoying every little thing that's happening. And, you know, I don't want to say that spirituality or witchcraft or anything like that really led me to have, you know, these perceived blessings that I'm having in my life right now by just kind of saying yes. Like, I surrender to whatever I think the universe has in store. And when something feels right, I'm just going to go with it. You know, it has been kind of easy for me because I was a single woman who didn't have any children, you know, so it was easy for me to clear the mechanism sometimes and do that, you know, that meditation. But I'll tell you what, I was also for a year really, really lonely, and in a really dark place, kind of with just like, I don't know, my personal life. And I don't want to really teach anymore, but I don't know what else to do necessarily. I want to do like 5 different things. And then, you know, I meet this guy and he's like, man, I could really use someone like you around who has your expertise in these 5 areas. And I'm like, what is happening? This is all so well. Like, I do think we manifest, you know, like it's whatever our minds are focused on is kind of where we,
absolutely,
where we go.
Yeah. That's where I've kind of, you know, just now starting to learn, you know, the old saying, let go, let God, and to quit worrying. I have to tell myself, stop worrying. You know, there's going to be an answer to this and the universe will work it out. And just to learn to get up each day and those problems, just like, okay, I'm putting it behind me. I'm going to go enjoy my day and try to stay in the most positive frame of mind that I can. Because I think you reap what you sow. If I'm negative all the time, then of course I'm going to attract negative things in my life. For sure. Make my life more difficult. And I think that's one lesson that we are down here to learn is that we can create our life. We can make things happen for ourselves. We just have to learn to change our thinking.
Well, like she said, clear the mechanism every now and then.
Yes, absolutely.
Reset.
And that we control it all. We kind of have to ebb and flow.
Yeah.
We don't be in control. We can manifest and we can direct and we can make things happen, absolutely. But also that need for control is when the universe is going to be like, let me show you how not in control you are.
Yeah, and I think the like what you're pointing to is like balance. Because isn't that the hardest thing to find? Like, even if we're manifesting, even if we're trying to throw out positive vibes, if we don't have a balance, and I think in Buddhism they call that like the middle way or the middle path. And so there's always this pull and this tug, right? Or like I was saying earlier when we were talking about manifesting, the word I often go back to is like suffering. So like during that year you were suffering, you know, and I know that's a very broad term, but you know, the things that you learn through that, and then all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this guy needs those 5 things. So let me ask you, is that the same guy you're in Rhode Island with?
Yes, it is. He's sitting right here with me now, actually.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Great.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Yes.
to meet you as well.
Yeah, so it's very much, it's like in the plan that this guy that you're with now was brought to you. I think you both were brought together to help achieve what each of your goals are. I think that I think that happens to a lot of us, you know. Because my wife, she really kind of freed my mind a lot, because like I said, I was brought up in a pretty strict Christian background. She, you know, had books on Wiccan. And,
Pam was legit.
and I
dude.
thought, oh my God, you're going to hell, Pam.
Pam's going to hell.
And I would try to talk her out of. I tried to talk her, get rid of those witch
Did
books,
you?
man. Oh
And then,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden
yeah.
I meet
Because
you and
I
you're
was
ghost hunting.
I was so doctrine
Yeah,
in my
I got you.
head,
I got
and
you.
you know that from a child, I went. I mean, I went to church from the time I was like 5. I mean, sometimes on Wednesdays, you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I grew up, and then finally, you know, after like I made that statement about George Carlin saying I learned, you know, I was religious until I learned to think for myself.
Right.
And I started, you know, and some of the things Pam started saying to me, she really freed my mind. And so I think Pam was actually brought into my life to free that up, because man, I had so much guilt.
Right.
You know, I mean, we all sin. And, you know, when you try to follow everything, you're thinking, oh, God, I really screwed up here, you know.
Right, yeah.
But then to learn that, you know, hey, you know what? You're not going to hell.
Forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. You're not going to hell.
You ain't going to hell.
So, yeah. So I think,
experience.
so I think, you know, Pam was brought in my life for that, one of those main reasons. Why I was brought in her life, I have no idea.
Yeah, we haven't figured that
We
part
haven't
out
figured
yet.
that one out, except for, hey, pick up your underwear off the floor,
Just
you know.
keep doing Keith things,
Get your socks
man.
off the floor. But
Hey, Aaron, we have a ton of people in the chat asking about black magic. I don't even know what that is, honestly.
well, that's
Interesting.
yeah.
You know,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, as far as all of that goes, I don't want to, you know, have people think that I'm just one of these like high vibe, good vibes only the light person, and I think that that's probably clear, just like through what we've
For
said.
sure, yeah.
But already mentioned balance, but yeah, I mean, for as much light as a person has, there is shadow, there is darkness too, and that's something I think can help people who are kind of dabbling and thinking about getting out of religion because they've been feeling this guilt, and they realize, oh, I don't have to go through life feeling so guilty all the time. I'm a human, and this is normal, and everyone's kind of doing this too. But a lot of people are just, they really are afraid of their own darkness, and they're afraid of the thoughts that come into their head.
Yep.
And they think that it's not okay, the sort of thing. And I think they kind of scare themselves. As far as like, black magic type stuff goes, do I believe in that it exists? Absolutely. Do I dabble in it myself? No.
But supposedly it comes back tenfold, right? I mean, in witchcraft, that's what I've always heard, that if you practice black magic, whatever you put against someone, it's going to come back to you in tenfold. So even worse.
I think that's
Right.
life in general.
Like,
You know,
yeah, that was it's somewhat karma, you know, if you think about it. Is
you put good stuff out there, you get good stuff
Right.
back. You put negative.
Right.
And, you know, something that kind of has sparked in my mind as we go through this discussion is it seems to me that Wiccan, white magic, whatever you want to call it, it seems to be more a school of thought and a way of life, where black magic gets equated traditionally, I think, more with Satanism, paganism, the darker stuff in life. And what I have just occurred to me is that there seems to be a lot more ritual involved in that aspect than
I believe that too.
than what there is with, you know, like I said, this is more just kind of a school of thought, a way of life. We are how we are, you know. Where the darker stuff, it's like, okay, let me get my, you know, frog leg and my bat wing and my, you know, my moth antenna or whatever.
The hair
else.
from a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah, exactly. Mix it up here in this pot and see what happens.
Yeah. That's just too much work.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you got to bury
Keith,
that.
you're too lazy to be a witch.
Oh my God, you're so right. I mean, the rituals, like, forget about it. It's like, no, it ain't gonna happen. Yeah, like, you know, I gotta wait till the moon's setting somewhere, and then it's gotta be facing, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
The chicken bone facing to the west, and
Yes.
make sure you bury it only 2 inches deep. If you don't, it's gonna blow the spell. It's like, no, I ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
So are you still gonna ask her that last question on the page? Because
No, I mean, because like I
just
said,
ask her. I want to hear what she says. Please.
Okay. Well,
You want me to ask her?
so I'll ask her. It's just some of these questions. We kind of had these questions for,
Let's just say this: it's like a couple dumbasses wrote these questions out.
Okay. Yeah. And I wasn't going to ask you this because, after I talked to you, it's like, I know this, she's definitely not involved in this. Yeah. So have you ever been so mad at someone that you had put a bad spell on them is one of the things, but you're not really a practicing witch though, as far as white magic or black magic.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like do stuff against people. I have had a witch friend of mine who does kind of she does spells, she does things. She made me some protection dust. Mm-hmm. She followed some recipe that she has in a book, a grimoire as they're called. Mm-hmm. A grimoire is where you're going to write down, just your little recipes. Mm-hmm. And, for me, I have a grimoire, but it's like I have a recipe in there for an all natural facial scrub. And, it's not to hurt anybody. It's because I'm thrifty.
Right. Yeah. A good example too is, I heard this one witch say, like she worked with this guy. She couldn't stand him. She hated this guy. And she said, instead of putting a spell on him, she prayed that he would get transferred to another city and that he would get a good job. And so everything was positive, and it did happen. The guy ended up leaving and got transferred. Wow. And he had a better job. So he was happy. She was happy.
Everybody wins.
And everybody wins. And she didn't put like, he's going to be hit by a car or something. Right. Or something evil.
I'm convinced you can't go wrong putting more love into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, for her.
We actually kind of talked about that in the Lisa Lamb episode.
What's that?
Are you familiar with was that her name, Pamela? Lisa Lamb?
Elisa
Lamb. Are you familiar with that?
Followed that when it first happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So completely bizarre. That episode was really crazy though, because it took this turn. Like initially, we were doing Delphi case, and we started doing some true crime stuff, and so that was something we wanted to do was the Lisa Lamb case, and so we did it thinking it was going to be more of this true crime thing. And by the end of the show, because we are a Life After Life paranormal podcast, all of a sudden we're talking about vessels and negative energy and positive energy
and mental illness.
Yeah, well, and mental illness for sure, but we were talking about the history of that location.
Yeah, right? That is the Cecil Hotel is got a very negative vibe to it. I mean, there's been not people I talked to, but ghost hunters who went there, and they said you can just feel it's weird. It's not a good energy there.
I could feel it through the documentary.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah, I totally believe that. On some things you can feel that.
Yeah.
That is just.
I did not trust that manager lady. I did not like her one bit.
She was weird, wasn't she? She was very suspect to me.
She didn't even have to say any words, and my whole body went, nope.
Yeah, I got the same vibe you did off her. Even her expressions were very suspect.
What's up with her? What'd she do?
I don't think she's an honest person. I don't think she has good intentions. That's what I kind of picked up on her. I'm not saying she had anything to do with Lisa Lamb, because I think Lisa Lamb was just mentally ill. Right. But to me, if she could have covered that up and not got in trouble, then she would have been one of those people.
Wow.
She just
letting people drink the nasty water.
You're probably not going to find an upstanding vessel of holiness and purity to manage the Cecil Hotel.
That's true. On Skid Row, yeah.
Good point.
It is a great. Pamela always comes in with the good points.
They need that there.
Right. Yeah.
That whole place needs to be just blessed.
And the reason I was bringing that up is because we were talking about, putting love into the world, right?
Right.
And what could happen if you are putting hate into the world, and we see it all the time, man. Mm-hmm. Like it's right in front of us, and so I just think that's you're a cool witch, Aaron.
We'll just call her CW. Yeah, so it's funny because all the questions I have are just witchcraft stuff. So we're just gonna talk with you.
Sweet.
So Yeah, because one of the questions was, what exactly is a witch coven, which is just a group of
Is
witches,
it?
isn't it? I think so.
Are you a part of a coven?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would like unofficially, totally.
Oh,
A
cool.
friend of mine has two sisters and mom, and they just, the four of them together, it feels powerful. Like just, I like being around these strong, protective, witchy women.
Right.
I feel like we kind of definitely had. We pulled some people in, and you're kind of you're. Yeah, I hate the term because it does sound so new age, but witchy.
Yeah.
You're witchy, and I use that because there are so many different things you can incorporate into your practice that it kind of lends itself to dabbling. I don't know if you guys have been to Craig's Emporium there in Oklahoma City, the metaphysical store.
I have.
But you can walk in there and go around to different areas and see. Oh, you can see like if you kind of practice this sort of thing. And I'll tell you, really, astrology is a huge part of what I do. I talk about zodiac signs, and like I can do birth charts and birth chart analysis for people. So that's also kind of, I think, the other aspect of what people consider witchiness, because I study astrology and understand that certain transits of different planets are going to affect the pull. And going to just affect things that happen here. And a lot of people do not believe in that sort of thing either. And that can lend itself too.
Is it growing though?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, there are bands and, like
Salem Wolves.
I think every president has had a personal astrologer, someone who just reads their chart and lets them know of anything that's, possibly coming up. It's a lot more popular of a practice than I think we in the Bible Belt realize.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. So the covens, basically it's like, okay, I'm a musician, so I hang out with musicians.
So it's like a
Right.
gang of witches.
Yeah. So if I was a witch, I would hang out with a bunch of witches.
Can that be one of the album names for the Salem Wolves? Gang of Witches?
I don't know. Her boyfriend's right there. You can
That
ask him.
would be a sweet song name or album name.
I'll pass that on for sure.
Gang of Witches, man. That's cool.
Yeah. And then go ahead.
The coven meetings would mainly be, attached to pagan holidays. So we might get together for a May Day celebration or something like that. We might get together during a full moon and try to manifest together, or during a new moon and set intentions together, because it's the same thing you're taught in church, where one or more gather in my name, right?
Collective energy.
Yeah.
It's not that we're gathering in Satan's name or anything like that. It's that we're gathering in, like, to set the intention to, hey, if we're all putting our minds and energy together, that has to be better. And we just like each other, they're our friends. So just like you like to, get together with the boys and have a poker night or whatever, it's like, let us witchy women have
Do our witchy things.
our poker night too.
Yeah.
I love the idea of collective energy though.
Well, yeah. It's just like, are you familiar with Art Bell by any chance? He was
No.
He was one of the main guys on Coast to Coast AM. They talked about paranormal, UFOs, things like that. He did an experiment with his place that they hadn't got rain in a long time. So he had, Art had like 5 million listeners or whatever. So they decided to collectively concentrate on rain for this area.
Interesting.
And by God, it started
No
raining.
way.
And raining.
wow.
But Art
And
Bell,
raining, and Art was getting scared because it wouldn't quit raining.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
everybody stop the rain.
Yeah, so he never did an experiment like that again, because he said he thought it might work, but he just wasn't.
Right.
But he had no idea that
Wow.
that much energy focused on that one place actually
believe it.
made it rain.
Well, I'll go back to the interview with the two paranormal investigators. And what they were telling us is that there was a study done on holy water, and they had a sample of holy water that was blessed by a priest that really believed in it. There was a sample of holy water that was screamed and cursed at by somebody that didn't believe in it. And then there was a
Tap water.
There's just tap water. Just nobody yelled or prayed on it or anything. And actually, at the molecular level, it looked different, right? And so there's something to be said about energy. I mean, even chanting, you see it.
Yeah,
with
it's just the
monks.
Yeah, I think it's any intentions put forth to something, whether it's positive or negative, is going to change the molecular level of that thing. And they found out that the priest's holy water was the most clearest water.
Pretty, yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty water, and then they actually found like bacteria.
It was chaos
or something.
Yeah,
chaos in the glass of water that people were screaming at and cussing.
Yeah, it's just insane.
Which is
right.
It just shows.
Yeah,
it just shows how powerful we are.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's amazing.
We are creators, and people just don't realize it.
Well, it goes back to like, okay, so let me just be very transparent. I was driving, we all know Wheatland, right?
Yeah.
In this conversation, okay. There's a cemetery over there.
The railroad tracks?
Excuse me?
Are there railroad tracks right there?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's it's next door to Mustang.
Yeah, there's railroad tracks. There's a cemetery right there. And we were driving at night going home, and we passed the cemetery, and it looked like a seance. Candle. It was like pretty late at night, maybe like 11 o'clock. But what I love about this conversation is when she says like we get together like for a full moon or for May Day or whatever, like, because when I initially passed by that, I was like, okay, that's creepy. That's a bunch of Satanists doing a seance in the cemetery. But now in hindsight, looking at it after talking to you, Aaron, and like opening my mind to the idea again of collective energy and collective effort, now I'm kind of looking at that and feeling a little bit guilty that I was so judgmental.
Well, they were in a graveyard.
I know, but okay, go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Really don't gather in graveyards.
Yeah.
But
that sounds more like a Dia dos Muertos kind of thing.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Day of the Dead. Where they'll meet in the graveyard and bring offerings to their dead relatives that they get to cross over for one night and be with their family, which is actually a relatively new. This isn't something that's thousands of years old. This is really only about 100 years old, maybe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really not.
And is it Latin American culture?
Yeah, Mexican American, Latin American, Hispanic American culture. Right. Yeah.
Very cool.
The painted skulls.
The
sugar skulls as they call them. And all that.
Wow.
And really, when you think about it, and I don't know, maybe it's just me with the perspective of a nurse that's practiced in hospice for a long time, I don't have that same fear of death and graveyards and things that a lot of other people do.
Right,
that, the creepy movies and all of that. That I find it, not comforting, but I find it peaceful and kind of nostalgic and interesting to go to those places and see those headstones and read about those people, and go, man, I wonder what this one was like.
Yeah, that's interesting.
There was an engraving of something on a headstone that goes, wow, I bet that was a really neat person. I wish I'd had an opportunity to know him, something like that. So, yeah, shame on you, Garrett.
I feel bad now, honestly.
Garrett thought they were digging graves up.
I feel bad. I really do.
Yeah.
This has been another fascinating conversation.
What was their attire?
I couldn't see them. It was so dark.
Uh-huh.
Like it was like literally like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And they're out there.
In that particular, and I don't want to say too much to give too much away. In that particular cemetery, I know there is a teenager buried. That the family of that teenager had a very, very difficult time with the death.
Okay.
And unfortunately has not grieved in a very healthy way.
I got you.
And they may have been out there trying to reach that child.
Right.
In desperation.
Got you.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sad.
That is sad.
Yeah.
Well, Garrett, do you have any?
Well, I was going to ask Aaron one last thing. Just
Yeah.
because what's great about this is like we do have a very interesting group of listeners because we do a lot of different topics, whether it be from reincarnation to true crime to this conversation, which has been fascinating. If there's any takeaway, like talking to me as a friend, right? Like I've known you forever. Like what would it be? What would you want to get across about, like, because you also taught a lot of kids, and, you know, we're kind of like in the same dimension, I guess, for a while. And so I know how important it is to like, you know, I do this show. This is kind of like me being a witch. People get to come on here and they get to hear what I really think, right? And so after being, you know, in that position for so long and now being in Rhode Island, like, is there any takeaways, anything?
Yeah, ultimately, like, you know, we talked a lot about organized religion, and we just so often we just want to belong, you know, and we just want to feel a part of something. And so I would just say whatever like feels good to you, and if it makes you feel a part of something, great. But ultimately, to me, like, a spiritual practice is such an individual thing.
Amen.
And I tell everybody, absolutely go your own way. You know, don't let anyone tell you that something is wrong, or not right to believe if it agrees with your own soul. Like, that's what you should trust. Just whatever really makes you feel at peace and settled. Go with that.
Amen. I love that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Thanks.
And
I miss all those. I'm gonna tell Taylor I said hi. She was such a joy to have in class. She's so sweet.
Actually,
Thank you.
Miss Taylor has asked that you do her birth chart. She says to tell her I'm Leo Sun, Capricorn Moon, and Scorpio Rising.
Oh my.
Oh my Lord, I'm sorry about that.
No, y'all will just have to send. So it's funny, like, to do a birth chart, you need a person's birthday, their time of birth, and she already knows her rising. The time is really what tells me a rising sign, and then the location. But yeah, I can send me that info in a message, and I will.
Okay.
And yeah, just tell her to send it to me. I think she has me on Instagram or something.
She does.
Yeah.
Send me her info and I'll do it for sure.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, she talked very well of you.
She did.
She liked you very
Yeah,
much.
hey, all my students at the gym always loved having you in class. So.
Absolutely.
I miss it,
But doing charts, that's a lot of work, isn't it? I mean,
it's really, you know, it's not. It's not, because I'm using software. You know, I'm plugging stuff in and using software, and I'm relaying the information. Like, it's not as laborious as it sounds. Now, back when people really had to draw them out and stuff before we had the internet, I'm sure that was quite involved. But yeah, no, there's software. There are things that we modern witches can
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you got to be real witchy to draw out a birth chart. So.
yeah.
Right.
We really appreciate you like taking the time. I know you just moved. Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, and we're gonna circle back around, man.
Yeah, we can have you back on.
Absolutely.
Would you
I'd
be
love-
down for that?
Absolutely.
Maybe you could do some readings or something.
Yeah.
I would love.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Hey, do you got, go ahead and, while we got the people on here, do you want to go ahead and plug your Facebook and any services you provide? Go right ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I'm kind of at this like transitional, just moved here, getting everything that I want to do here kind of sorted out. But at on Instagram at I Teach Yo.
I love that.
Because I feel like I'm always going to be a teacher no matter what.
For sure.
That's all going to come through. So I'll probably just keep that Instagram. But yeah, you can find me at I Teach Yo. And honestly, for readings, I just kind of rely on people sending me messages and saying, hey, I'd really like a tarot reading. And I can kind of give you more information that way as to what I can do for you and all that stuff. But
You're awesome.
yeah, it's pretty much the way I communicate with most. So
Cool.
That's how I found you.
And again, it's Erin Patton.
Yeah.
yeah,
So she's
So nice to talk to you,
She's on
man.
Facebook.
how you figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, you bet.
have a great evening. Thank you so much for helping us out tonight. And we
You bet.
definitely want to have you back on.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds
So let me ask you something before I let you go.
Yeah.
So is your husband into our boyfriend? I'm sorry, soon to be husband.
Significant other.
Soon to your significant other. Is he also? Is he into the well? What would I call it? Witchcraft or?
She's a witch.
Yeah.
Is he witchy?
Is he witchy?
Is he witchy?
Warlocky?
I would say that he's witchy-ish. Sure, he's open to a lot of things for sure. He's also very smart, science-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Can bring me down to earth sometimes when my ideas get too out there.
There's that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that balance is great for that.
absolutely. Well, Aaron, you have a great night.
Enjoy it.
And thank you again for being on.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, you guys.
All right, we'll stay in touch. We'll get you back
All
on.
right.
All right.
Bye.
Sounds good.
All right. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Aaron.
Whoa,
And
whoa,
there you have it.
Wow.
That was interesting.
That was very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't. That's not where I expected it to go, honestly.
What were you thinking?
Man, I don't know, like witchy stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it was now that I understand, I'm able to wrap my head around it. Like, it isn't spells and things of that nature. It goes back to the spiritualist kind of mentality.
That's a good word for it. I think
it
just
is.
spiritualist, not so much witches but I think from what I was gathering, she was saying that because it was going against the grain of modern religion.
And I think, that's the thing about it is it's like even the way she explains it is it's not really going against the grain of modern religion.
No.
But those who are
are conservative Christians, they would say it's witchcraft. It's from the devil.
Right. Yeah.
It's Satanist,
Yeah, it's going against. Yeah, but when she speaks of it, it's very individualized, which
it's very
at the end of the day, everybody's perception of earth and life and relationships and faith has to be individualized.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. So that calls into question the soul and spirits and how you bring information in and vibes, right? And so that's why I thought it was so cool. Like a lot of the things she was saying, we've talked about with other people that are doing different things, right?
Right.
Military medium, Dr. Crowley, Kathy Nance, Kathy Owens, like these kind of people that have been on. It's all like we're trying to figure this thing out, and we know that there's these common links. But until you slow down and you try to access them, they're just gonna fly by, and then you get reincarnated. You're screwed.
Yeah.
And then you keep getting reincarnated over and over.
Do not pass go.
Yeah, you're going back, Keith.
It sounds exhausting to me.
Dude, I hope that when you're reincarnated, that you get reincarnated to like 1892.
No.
Yeah, because that can happen. I think.
I want modern conveniences. No, I want air conditioning. I want heat.
I want you to have to work to do a birth chart as a witch.
Oh man, no.
Okay, so can you guys kind of like explain to me some of this stuff, like the tarot card, like how exactly does that work?
It's kind of, I'm not going to say chance, but it's they're concentrating on they're taking the energy of the person, and usually, if I remember right, I think the person shuffles the cards, don't they?
Yeah, it can be done either way.
Either way, but the vibes around the tarot reader.
I think it works better if the person reading the tarot has a personal relationship with the person they're reading for.
That makes sense.
Then they can shuffle and do the reading from a distance.
Right.
Kind of like what Aaron was talking about earlier. But if it's somebody who's walking in off the street, then I think then you have to have an actual physical connection to the cards to get that energy.
Gotcha.
So I think you're reading energy as much as everything, and that impacts the cards, which then in turn impacts the reader.
Right, and I think that the person that walks through that door and makes that decision to go in there is obviously in a place like that's more susceptible anyways.
Yep.
Right.
Like you're going in for a reason, and we talk about purpose a lot, and like that, I think that's what she was saying was, and I hate to speak for her now that she's not on, but essentially what she was saying was she got to this point where she wasn't seeing purpose on TV, she wasn't feeling it in her job, and so this has now become her purpose, and she's a witch.
Yeah.
It's like we talked to a witch tonight.
Yeah.
A cool one.
Very much so. We didn't, it wasn't the evil, hex. And I don't think I'd want to have a witch on our show that was like that because I wouldn't trust them. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's like, how do we know they're not going to put a spell on you or me or Pam?
But I think it's the same thing like you always talk about in our paranormal shows, Keith, is that like if you're scared of that, like if you let yourself believe in that, then you become susceptible to it. Like that's why.
Yeah, but I think there's
go,
still an element of being careful and
That sounds like another
wise.
show.
Yeah, and I just think it's.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's true. But yeah, I just think there has to be a little air of caution there. You know?
Definitely.
Don't be stupid.
Well, that's why when she said the Ouija board, I wanted to say no, don't touch it.
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Yeah,
Aaron, there's no reason to touch the Ouija board. You're doing fine with your witchy stuff.
And there's a lot of people who are fine. I mean, they talk about, as long as you close the session, you do it the correct way, it's fine.
Right,
but,
right.
Man, it's a ritualistic thing. If you forget to close that session, then you leave a portal open, and it's just not worth even playing with it.
And we've talked about it before. Like I remember me and Larry, we were like super hammered trying to play around with a Ouija board, and we're like moving it around. And so like obviously in that point, some people will be like, "Oh, you're susceptible to being, like the spirits are going to come get you," but. No, I think it's the exact opposite. I think that you're like completely because you're not buying into it, right? That's I guess the point I'm trying to make. Like if we're hammered drunk and we're like, oh yeah, I wouldn't suggest it, but I'm just saying.
I still think that even because you hear experiences all the time where kids are playing with it and they don't believe it in either, and all of a sudden stuff starts happening in the house.
Yeah, definitely.
So anytime verbally you invite any spirit, in your house, you're flipping a coin, man. Whether that spirit's evil or whether that spirit's good,
right?
To me, it's just not worth the risk.
Yeah, absolutely not. It is the worst toy ever made.
And remember, just like I told you that experiment I did with the spirit box, where when I didn't invite anything, when I didn't ask, is there any spirits? Nothing came through that box. But as soon as I asked, is there any spirits here? I invited, and then boom, that's when I started getting answers on it. So I think it's in the intention for one. I think they're always skeptical, but they kind of hope something happens, because it'd be interesting.
Intrigue.
But they don't know exactly the seriousness of what they're dealing with.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you just say, "Are there any spirits?" Well, you just now ask good spirits, evil spirits, any spirits to come through. So you got to be careful about asking. I only want a spirit from the light. The light, and I don't want any negative spirits here. I don't, you have to go through a whole ritual, and to me, it's too much of a risk.
See, I just have this picture in my head of like me and Larry, like in the barracks, just like wasted.
Drunk.
Talk to me. And so like, and they're probably like, "Whoa, we don't even want to come through to that room." But oh my god,
you about
got Roswell.
Yeah, you about did.
No, but that stuff it's just unbelievable. And what's crazy about the spirit box, Keith, is that like obviously, and I've mentioned this a lot on the show, is I wasn't like totally into that stuff. Yeah, I like to watch the paranormal shows and everything, but until I had the experience at you guys' house, your old house, which is now on the market for anybody looking for a house.
my
pitch.
My haunted house is for sale.
I was gonna say, like, you guys might want to market it as a haunted house. That'd be kind of cool.
Well, when Kathy Nance came out and she cleansed it and blessed it. I mean, I go there by myself all the time, like almost every day, doing something to get it ready to be sold.
Yeah.
And
it's not there anymore.
I just don't. I don't feel anything watching me. I don't feel anything.
The heaviness.
I don't feel any heaviness at all.
You don't feel like you're walking through water in your pool?
No.
Because that's how it used to feel.
It used to, yeah.
So then, but even then, the K2 thing, right? I was like, okay, well, this is a very general thing, right? The spirit box. I was like, okay, well, is there a way? Guys, this was like 2010, and you asked the spirit box, what did you say? Don't contact, or is there anybody there? Nobody answered. How did it go again?
Which, I mean, I've used it so many times.
I know, but whenever there was no response. What did you ask it specifically?
Are you talking about the spirit box or
Yeah,
the K2
spirit box,
meter?
spirit box.
Oh, when I did that little experiment?
Yeah, what did you ask?
Basically, I tried just saying, I just turned it on.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't say a word, and nothing came through it.
Right.
And then I turned it off. And then I thought, okay, now I'm going to invite and see if me verbally inviting spirits into my realm, is that going to have an effect? And it did. So as soon as I said, are there any spirits here? Then I got help me, help us. I mean, then I got all these, I had 4 or 5 voices at the same time going. So it's your intention, it's inviting.
Right.
I think a lot of people don't understand that even if you walk in a house that's not haunted and you're going through the K2 meter, when you start asking spirits to come,
your street light
it doesn't mean that it's a spirit in the house. It could be a spirit just in a realm that heard you and go, oh, I got an invitation, I go.
I love,
And then you just caused the haunted house.
Well, I love how the military medium described it as the street light at the end of a dark road, right?
Mm-hmm.
That like all of a sudden, like when he's active, it's like ding, it's on, and everything starts going towards it. And so, yeah. And do you think that that's like tied into prayer as well? Like just inviting things, So is that like prayer, meditation, intentions?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's
bless this food, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really mean anything. But if you're like,
but it might after when you verbally say something
over and over. Okay.
Because when you say something, you're putting it out in the universe, whether it's good or bad.
That's true. And it lives on.
If you bless the food, then verbally you probably just blessed your food.
Right. And when she was talking about the haunted house, and I love that nickname. How cool the nickname is, Boogie.
I know,
dude. This guy, man, he's crazy. He's awesome.
So we need to get maybe him.
I'll talk to Boogie. Yeah, I'll talk to Boogie. But when she's describing that, and he's a tough guy, dude. He's a tough dude, and so for Boogie to be kind of like shaken up, that's like that. For Jeremiah to be kind of that's interesting. But she's talking about door flying open, food flying out. First off, that's a ton of energy that's taking. Secondly, that doesn't sound like residual energy to me.
No,
right?
I think she was residual energy is energy, like I've said this a million times, like at midnight, every midnight, you see a woman walking down the stairs, walking back up.
Right.
That's residual energy. It's not intelligent energy.
Right.
If you've got something pulling stuff out of a refrigerator, throwing it, you've got an intelligent entity.
And it's trying to get
It's
your
not
attention.
residual.
Right.
Because it's not. It's active energy that is responding to a human talking to it or trying to get its attention. Residual energy is not trying to get your attention. It's just a repetitive thing that like it's stuck in a loop.
Right.
Basically. So, I mean, a lot of paranormal investigators will find that. They'll go to a house and the lady goes, hey, there's, I'm seeing this entity going up and down my stairs, right?
Residual. Right.
And so it's energy that possibly is someone that lived there 100 years ago, whatever, the routine of going up and down the stairs at a certain time. That energy was left behind. It's still going. Eventually, I think it fades away.
Right.
But no, when you got something pulling stuff out of the refrigerator, throwing things, playing a guitar, the thing she was talking about, that's an intelligent entity, is what they call it, where they can react to you.
Right.
Yeah. So
in my mind when she was saying that, and I was thinking, man, like how frustrating would that be? Or is it playful? She did use the word playful, but to be on the other side of it. So to not be Jeremiah or to not be Aaron that is seeing this as a human, but to be on the spiritual side of it, just trying to get somebody's attention. A,
it'd be horrible.
Or B, just messing with them.
Yeah, I mean, if
you just throw the mayonnaise on the
if
ground.
you do look at those, like we've talked about that before about spirits people who've died and they haven't gone to the light and they're earthbound,
right?
Because they're afraid to go to the light because of judgment or whatever their beliefs were here on earth.
Right.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, all that, I want to get that guy because the funny thing is some of the stuff she said almost sounded like my ghost was going back and forth there for a minute.
Well, that's what I was saying is like, I think your house in town is like not too far. So I was like, man, there's that spirit bouncing around Mustang, just like messing with people.
Yeah, but getting back to what you're saying, I do think spirits get probably, if they don't go to the light, they're frustrated. They may not, they're like, where the hell am I?
Right.
And they can see you clear as day. You can't see them. So they may knock a lamp off. They may do things that you would think, oh, this is evil, but it's
Right.
not evil. They're just trying to get your attention
Yeah,
because
please.
they want answers. They
Yes,
don't know,
yes.
why am I still stuck here? Why haven't I
Right.
why haven't I
can't you
went to
see me?
heaven or hell or wherever I'm supposed
And
to
that's
go?
where she said, like, that's when it takes having somebody come in that can actually speak to them and answer
Yeah.
their questions.
Yeah, and you need
And that's
that.
what Kathy essentially did, her team, right? Or
Yeah.
no, Kathy.
Yeah.
Came in and did
You have
that
to
for you.
you have to be a medium. That's different than a psychic.
Right.
That you can actually, a psychic can kind of just tell you certain things,
Right.
you know, but a medium usually can actually connect or not. I mean, it can even ask to be possessed by that spirit to
Right.
speak if they want. But yeah, you need something like that to communicate with, like, you know, what's the guy we went and saw? I can't think. I mean, Chip Coffey.
Oh, awesome. I love
Yeah,
him.
he's a perfect example
Right.
of a medium, you know, because he'll sit there and then he'll start taking on a different personality,
Really?
talking to the people. It has an effect on him. Yeah. And but he's also a psychic as well. You could be a psychic medium, or you can be a
Right,
psychic, or you
right.
can be a medium.
Right.
But
Well, have you, one thing, and we can do we should probably, because I think I said we need to do a show just on like mediums and stuff, but physical. Have you seen that where they're like, they do the seance, they're inside like a curtain and they actually take on like voices and stuff? Have you ever seen videos of that, like a physical medium?
yeah, I've seen a few.
There was one on that Netflix documentary about NDEs,
Yeah.
and it was super interesting. And she was just taking on like these different personalities to get certain messages out. And what was interesting is there was always this little kid that would come to start off the session, and she said that little kid's job, and I don't know how she did the voice if she was faking, but that little kid's job was to actually get people to relax, so that they're more susceptible, to get them to laugh a little bit. He would
Yeah.
tell jokes and stuff, and then he would start actually telling people things about themselves that like other people didn't know. So
Right.
crazy. So no, that's just fascinating.
Right. Well, I think it's that time to shut this booger down.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you very much, Aaron. She saved our butt.
Yeah.
Because I mean, thank God she came on. We had no guest.
It was just a fascinating conversation.
And it's an awesome conversation. She's very interesting.
Yeah.
So we need to have her back.
Isn't that cool
and,
that she was a teacher, English teacher,
I know.
at a high school?
Yeah, and my daughter was one of her
Yeah.
students. Is even
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, super cool.
And
So,
she's going to do a chart for her.
yeah, that's neat.
And that's sweet of Aaron to do that, because it's usually they get paid to do that kind of
Right.
thing. So, and I don't know, maybe she'll invoice her.
I doubt it.
But all right, so next week, guys, remember we are off. Garrett is going to Florida. Oh, it must suck to be you, huh?
Beach season.
Going to the beach.
I have to.
I think our next show, I'd like the person you guys were talking about who
I'll try to see if I'm
had the experiences of the haunting.
Yeah, he's a great storyteller.
Yeah, I want to
too.
get into some more scary, frightening stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of go that route for a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely.
And let's do that, and then we will maybe do a true crime.
And I'll tell
Throw
you,
one in there.
this. I guarantee you, in that episode, when we start doing the scary stuff, it'll always come back to what the witch said earlier, and that is love, spreading the love. You can't have light without darkness, right? And darkness without right. And so that's why I love these conversations, Keith. They're always
It's
so
a
cool,
relevant
man.
world we
It's
live in.
an interesting thing, man.
It is. All right, guys. Thanks very much for coming. Showing up. Thanks for coming to the house and sitting
I'll cut that and put it on Instagram. Don't worry.
Yeah, right. But anyway, you guys have a great night.
All right.
Thank you again for
Love
coming.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.